Hi, my name is Mio. I'm a co-founder and an executive director of You, a nonprofit based in Japan, who's hosting this event with Yoshi-san organizations here today. And then today's event is about the governance that enables purpose-oriented company, and especially about steward ownership from Europe and then examples from around the globe. And we're Zebras in Company, Tokyo Zebras Tokyo Zebras United, and You are co-hosting this organization, and we're very honored to have speakers from two organizations. One is from Purpose Group, Annika here, and also Stefan from Stapel staying from Germany. And I'll introduce them more later. But first, I'm gonna stop stop sharing the screen and then explain a little bit about how today's event goes. So today's event will be with Sorry, my screen is a bit frozen, but you can see me, right? Okay, good. Okay, so in today's event, I'll explain a little bit about You and why we are hosting this event, and then I'll pass on to Yoshi-san, and Yoshi-san will explain how Zebras and Company are co-hosting this event, and then how they're involved in steward ownership, and then we'll have Annika to speak about purpose steward ownership, and for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then after that, we'll have Stefan to talk about his company's transition into steward ownership. And then we'll open up for question and answers with the participants and then with moderators. And so You is a nonprofit that kind of bridges sectors and different boundaries across different regions and countries for social good. So we work with social mission organizations like nonprofits in Japan and nonprofit leaders or companies or individuals who wants to do good for the society, and then try to nurture leaders and communities for social good. And governance is one of the key concepts or key things that we focus on, because decision making and the governance structure is so important for doing something good for the society and in the world, but it's often not really focused in day-to-day operation, but it's kind of structured that holds all the organizations and an important decision making system and power dynamics. So we do consulting in terms of board training, board and governance consulting for nonprofits in Japan. And that's why we thought this purpose group and steward ownership is so interesting. And then we wanted to introduce the concept into Japanese audience. That's why we're hosting this event. Yoshi-san, would you like to spend some time to talk about you and then introduce how you are involved in steward ownership?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good, yeah. Let me share my screen first. Hold on. Sorry, I have a bit throat ache, so it's kind of hard for you to hear me, but I try to speak as large as possible, as loud as possible. You see my screen now? Okay. Yeah, so I'll talk about, well, let's say my self-introduction, and then also the introduction of the company, as well as the organization called Zebras-ownership. Let's see. So Zebra, some of you might have heard about the concept. Some of you may not. What is Zebra? Zebra is a concept that was born in the US back in 2017, where you probably know Unicorn. I would speak with this lady's story first. So they're the co-founders of Zebras, the organization of Zebras Unite. They all were founders of the company, entrepreneurs, and they see this problem where in Silicon Valley or in startup in startup sector, you see a lot of unicorns, and then you see a lot of venture capitals that try to pursue the unicorn or the future unicorns, and then invest in them, and they expect the companies to grow, in 3 to 5 years to IPO, and with the exponential growth called J curve. But if you are wise enough, not every company wants to be like that or can be like that. Actually, there's only 1,500 companies in the world. Sorry, 15 companies, unicorns in the world, which means the rest of the companies is not unicorn. And a lot of companies actually make, still make profit, still grow, while they're making great social impact. They are not just growing as exponentially. So there's a big gap between the nature of the capital that was provided by the investors or the financiers, and the nature of the capital that entrepreneurs want. So that's why they started this movement called Zebra Movement. So they basically named these companies non-unicorn that makes a social impact, a Zebra. So that was the start of this concept in the US. They actually, two of these co-founders wrote this blog, and this blog was basically a smash hit, and everybody read that, and the concept disseminated in the US as well as 30 other countries or other cities, and I was one of them too, actually. So this I'll do my self-introduction a bit. So I've been in impact investing sector for a long time, and I was fascinated by the concept of this impact, but at the same time, I had the same the situation with these co-founders of Zebras Unite. I see a lot of entrepreneurs who are actually struggling because they cannot get the finance from the impact investing. Even in impact investing, 10 years ago, everybody was providing basically a venture capital nature of the capital. So everybody was basically looking for a social unicorn, while a lot of entrepreneurs are not unicorn, they are social, I would say, zebras. So when I was thinking about this, I met those co-founders in the US, and I asked them to let me start this in Japan. What we do now is, this is our theory of change. The upper part, the blue part, is our vision, make a thoughtful, healthy, and enjoyable society. And this, you see the stairs. We're going to run from the bottom to the top. Right now we are in this purple section. We started from the creating movement with Zebras Unite, and basically, raise an awareness. I created the Japanese word of zebra, the translated version. And right now we are in this purple section. We do, because I see a lot of needs, and I see this concept of zebra really matches with the Japanese market. I decided to not just to provide, not just to do advocacy work, but also do the actual investment work, actual business work. So I created this company, Zebras and Company. This is a company to invest in zebra companies. So we do an investment, providing a management support. And then we also do kind of theorizing our work on the ground, because it's a lot of things are new. So we don't have a book to refer, but we by ourselves, we do theorizing our practice. And we do a lot of partnerships, collaborations, because there's so much that we can do by ourselves. So we do a lot of collaborations to basically, spread this concept, spread this long-term perspective, multi-stakeholder view, which basically most of the Zebra companies have. When they see it, there's going to be more and more people who want to run Zebra companies, and then people who want to provide a capital for Zebra companies. That's what we're aiming to. So that's what we did. I have two of my co-founders, and we have some of the partners here. Zebras Unite in the US is our partner as well. I'm actually on the external board of the American organization since last year as well. And the achievement we did last year, the biggest part was, this is in Japanese, but Zebra was included in the Japanese economic policy, one of the most important policy by Kishida administration. So we are kind of now official in Japan, at least. We have been inquired by a lot of governments, regional governments, companies, and banks as well. So that's sort of our achievement. And the biggest, one of the big achievement that we have just done that is kind of related to the topic today is we supported the company called AG Press. In Japanese, it's called AG Shippan, which is one of the most well-known publishing company. And we suggested, and they took the idea of steward ownership. Basically, what we did was using a golden share to empower the employees of Asia Press, and so that they have a veto right, basically. But the company was acquired by a listed company. So it's an M&A with the golden share, protecting the purpose and the culture by employees. I will talk more about this deal later. Thank you.
Thank you, Yoshi-san, for the introduction. Thanks. And so we would like to introduce Annika, but before we introduce Annika for the speaker presentation, I would like to know where are today's participants are coming from. Can you, if you can type in the chat where you're calling, like dialing in or logging in, like from Japan or Tokyo, or I don't know, from Europe, or if you can type in, we can know and where you're coming from. Oh, Germany, Spain, nice, Japan. Great. 皆さん、どこからちょっと参加してくれてるか、日本語でも英語でもいいので書いてくれたらちょっと嬉しいです。はい。We have global. Osaka, Boston, thank you. Tokyo, great. Nice. UK, great. Nice. Hachinohe, nice. All right. We have audience from various regions or countries today. Very excited. I'm gonna quick intro Annika. So this first speaker is Annika Schneider, lead international partnership of Purpose. And then I'm sure she will introduce herself. But I contacted Purpose Group because I was interested in learning more about them. And then the Purpose Group introduced Annika as a wonderful speaker. So we are very looking forward to listening to your story. Annika, thank you so much. And then pass the screen over to you.
Perfect, thank you. I hope you can hear me well. If there's anything, please wave and shout. Before I share my screen, I would like to start with the story, because I thought, what's better than telling you the story of the day that actually brought me to steward ownership, that made me rethink what I think and made me think of steward ownership. And if we want to talk about this day, we have to travel back in time 7 years. I was back then working in a normal office. Tell you a little bit about it. So this day, I was really excited. I jumped up the stairs, I ran into the office, super exciting. And back then I worked in this really tall office building. And when you entered, you had the choice. There were 2 elevators. There was this really fast elevator, one of these modern ones that would take you up to your floor. And next to it was this really old Paternoster elevator. I don't know if you know that in Japan, but it's this thing that goes continuously around and is very slow. But I really like this one. So this day, as any day, I took this slow elevator. I go inside, and you can lean on the wall, and you see slowly on the floors in front of your eyes passing. While I stand there, I'm starting to reminisce about this job that I was working back then. I had started 6 months earlier, and it was one of these really fast-growing startups, heavily VC backed, and I had started fresh from university with a lot of energy, a lot of impact ideas, and I had, scored this position as entrepreneur in residence. So I thought, oh, amazing. If I'm entrepreneur in residence in such a high scaling company, I have a lot of impact, right? But more or less from day 2, all my ideas got shattered or got kicked down because, for instance, just to give you an example, I saw that all the employees, they don't really have a cohesion. They don't know each other. The atmosphere was bad. So I proposed, why don't we put a little bit of money into enabling them to have lunch together? Things like this, small ideas, small projects. And I would always have here 2 reasons why we couldn't do this. First reason was, we have to really focus on our monthly sales targets. And the second reason was, sorry, this does not fit the investors' vision, the investors. Which was crazy because, there were these investors who had all of the voting rights, or so much power over me. But in 6 months, I had never seen them, right? It was just a word, and they had so much power, but I had never seen them. But you remember, I'm still standing in my elevator. I'm still, slowly going up to my floor. And I was really excited on this specific day because the investors had said they would come to the office this day and meet everyone and, introduce themselves. So I thought, okay, amazing. This is my chance. I can, if I maybe start building a relationship with them, maybe I can even pitch some ideas for projects, for impacts, to create an impact in this company. So, okay, finally I arrive on my floor, I jump out, I go to my desk and I start to work. And from my desk, I could see the boardroom. So I see the investors coming in, going into the boardroom. They are talking with the founders. I still work. I look up every half a second because I was so excited. And finally in the afternoon, the door opens, handle goes down, door opens. So I jump up, ready to, pitch my ideas, introduce myself. And I stand in the door, and they pass the hallway, they walk past me, all of them ignoring me, one of them looking up at me, like nodding at me. And then they proceed down the corridor, out of the door, into that fast elevator, and off they are. And that was the only contact. That was the only time I saw these investors in my 1.5 years at that company. And of course, nothing changed afterwards. I still had no impact. So I wanted to tell this story because it really shows 2 principles that are inherent in our economies. And I'm quickly going to share my screens because I have prepared a few slides to show you the principles. And now you should be able to see my slides. Yes. Do you see the principles now? Mio, can you shake your head? Yeah, perfect. Right, so my story is there to demonstrate you 2 principles. First principle, money buys power, right? These investors had a lot of money, so they bought a lot of power in this company that I worked at. Second principle, companies mainly exist to maximize shareholder value. And that was also inherent and an everyday occurrence in that company. The only things we could do was to increase the value of the company. And now, if you think about these principles, they're really leading to a lot of paradoxical effects, right? If you look around the world, there are companies who strive for limitless growth, but we have physically limited resources. This doesn't work. And we have companies that are ruled by absentee owners, by people like my investors, instead of the people who are in the company who would be the best ones to make a decision, right? And we lose a lot of power and energy that companies could actually invest into solving real problems, right? Solving societal problems that we, face every day at the moment. And if you think about this behavior, it really threatens the basis of our existence. I mean, just think about how we are overshooting our planetary boundaries, how inequality is rising all over the globe, or how the concentration of money and power, like how companies are just in the hands of a few. And all of this money and power is really concentrated on a few, with, you know, leaving the rest powerless. And now, what can we do about this? Okay, we somehow need to look at companies, it seems. But if you look at companies and if you try to tame them, you look at what's out there, there's a lot of rules, regulations, trying to tame these companies, like CSR guidelines or all these sort of regulations. But I really like the picture of a tree. If you think of companies as a tree, and you look at these guidelines and regulations, it's like cutting off tree branches, or maybe put a little bit of decoration on them. But it doesn't really change the structure of the tree, it doesn't change the system. And if you think of the tree, what do you actually have to look at if you want to change the tree? You have to look at the roots. And in our opinion, from purpose, the roots are the ownership, right? It's the operating system of a company. It's the deep design in a way, right? The ownership is invisible, like the roots, but it has an effect on every layer of decision-making in every company. And now, okay, ownership is invisible, sounds very weird. But what is ownership actually? And that's when we did a lot of research and found out the following. Ownership actually is a bundle, right? It's a bag of rights. And right now, mostly it's two sorts of rights. We have voting rights and we have economic rights. Voting rights, who gets to decide something in the company, and the economic rights, who benefits from the value of the company. Right now, as in the startup company where I worked, these rights are bundled together and sold off to investors, right, as this bundle. But there are many companies who don't want to do this anymore. Many entrepreneurs, and I'm really excited to hear Stefan soon talk about his way into steward ownership, his experience with this bundle of ownership. And so Stefan and many other entrepreneurs don't want to accept this, that this is bundled together. So they rethink ownership. And what do they do exactly? First, they unbundle the ownership bundle and they split these two rights apart. And then they redesign them. They kind of, they put them into a new costume. And I'm quickly going to explain these two principles because they are super essential to steward ownership, or our understanding of steward ownership. The first principle is the steering wheel. We call it the self-determination principle. It more or less decides or determines that voting rights are not longer a commodity. They can no longer be sold or speculated, but instead the voting rights remain with people who are active or closely connected to the mission or the business of the company. So we could say we have steward owners instead of absentee owners. That's the steering wheel of the company. They hold the steering wheel of the company. The second principle is called the purpose orientation or the asset lock. It means that profits are means to an end and not the end in itself. Value cannot simply be extracted by shareholders out of a company, whatever they, if they think, oh, let's collect helicopters tomorrow, they cannot simply extract the value of the company. And the profits are reinvested. They can be used to cover capital costs, they can be reinvested for other projects, or they have to be donated. They cannot simply be extracted. Now, these are, let's call them the two new principles of steward ownership, or the two principles of steward ownership. And if I was now founding a company, I don't know, selling phones, I could write these principles on the wall, right? I could say, tell everyone, these are the principles, this is what sort of company we are. But if I run in front of a bus tomorrow, or if I change my mind tomorrow, I can just simply scrape the wall and no one has ever thought of this. So I need to find a way to lock these principles in a way that they can, not simply be changed, not simply, I cannot simply change my statutes and say, we are a normal company now, let's extract all the value. So if you think, what is steward ownership? Think of exactly this picture, the two principles and the lock of these principles. So that's what we call steward ownership, right? It's a new way of looking at who holds control and what motivates decisions. These two important factors looked at differently. And this is nothing we came up with just like that, right? We from Purpose were inspired by lots of historical frontrunners, companies who have done this already in the past. And just before our call started, we talked about companies in Japan who also have a different understanding of, being an independent company for the long run, with, I think, 8 of the 10 oldest companies in the world based in Japan. So the idea of these principles is nothing that we invented, but it's something that we got inspired by other companies. For instance, you have in Denmark quite a lot of these called industrial foundation companies who are essentially steward-owned. Or in Germany, you have Bosch and Zeiss, who are huge corporations that are steward-owned. But all of these companies were out there until 10 years ago, and they didn't really have any language for this ownership or this way of running a company. There was no information about this, no information. So what Purpose did back then is we did a lot of research. We looked at these companies. Okay, what are they doing differently? What connects them? And we found these 2 principles. We started to tell stories about this, and we coined the term steward ownership. And since we did that, started to do that 10 years ago, lots of other companies have joined this club or joined have transformed into steward ownership. And if you now look at these companies, these logos, you see very, very different types of companies. You have very small companies, German-based companies, but you also have very big companies, American companies. And now it's been crazy because, they all have these principles in their statutes, but how do they do this, right? They can't. Patagonia is probably using a different legal form than a small German company like Soul Bottles. And we can dive into that later, but my short answer is here. If each company that wants to do steward ownership really needs to find a way in their legislation that works in order to secure these 2 principles and lock them. So we use golden share models. We use trusts in the US. We use foundation-owned companies in order to do this. But if you look at all of these companies, there's 3 main target groups or 3 main motivations that arise throughout these entrepreneurs to do steward ownership. And we clustered them on the slide because we don't only work with startups, but we also, for instance, work with really old family businesses who say, we want to secure everything that we have. We want to secure our ownership model apart from the actual family. So for them, steward ownership is a great way to make sure that the company stays independent and stays mission-driven. Then we have entrepreneurs who say, I'm already living these principles. I want to lock them. So they come to us and we help them to do this. And then we have startups that start with a great idea, with a great mission, with some impact ideas, and they want to lock this from the first day to make sure to promise to stakeholders, shareholders, clients, employees, to promise that they stay independent and mission-driven for the long run, because we need these companies, right? If you look at now companies like Patagonia, they have only become so big and successful because they could remain independent. And if we build companies and then they all end up as unicorns being sold, we can never have these big companies like Patagonia who have an impact on the long run. Right. Now, lots of companies doing this, but does it actually work? You see, they give up voting rights, they give up economic rights partly. How does this work, or can this work? And luckily, there's a lot of data from Denmark, where there are many of these companies that prove that steward ownership is a great way for ownership, that these companies can actually be really successful and even more successful than traditionally owned companies. And I structured them a little bit across these 3 challenges that I introduced in the beginning. We have overshooting planetary boundaries, we are experiencing more rising inequality, and we have a concentration of money and power. And there's many studies that show that steward-owned companies counteract all of these challenges. So for instance, steward-owned companies can plan much more long-term oriented because they are not adhering to short-term profits principles that shareholders could press them on. So they usually have a much better ESG performance and have to take less hurtful or harmful decisions for the environment. We have rising inequality, and steward-owned companies are really showing that the inequality is, it's becoming less if companies are steward-owned. On the employee level, we have employees who earn more because incomes are usually more higher and also more secure. They have less fluctuation. There's less pay gap in between, men and women, but also in different groups within the company. And what really strikes me is that we have an increase in social mobility because people who might want to become an entrepreneur, but who don't have the financial means, in steward-owned companies, they can fill in these entrepreneurial positions without having to bring, the gold nuggets of their family safe. So they can fill in ownership positions that in other scenarios they would never be able to acquire. And the same goes for women. We see that more and more women, or first data shows this, that more and more women take on entrepreneurial positions in steward-owned companies because it's easier to move into such a direction. Lastly, we have, if more companies were steward-owned, we would have less concentration of money and power into the hands of a few, of course, because companies are independent, they're not acquired, they cannot be acquired any longer, and that leads to a more decentralized economy. Okay, now you might think, we have companies to do this, data shows it's an amazing idea to do this. Why are not more people doing this? And that's exactly where purpose comes into play. These are my colleagues, and these bubbles are the many different entities that we co-founded or helped to exist, because we challenge or we tackle three main challenges. The first problem is it's super unknown, this concept, right? Maybe some entrepreneurs would be interested, but if it's difficult to do this if you've never heard about this. There's a lack of information, there's lack of narratives. The only thing you hear in the media is, another unicorn, yay, another exit, the entrepreneurs are so successful. And I studied business for many years and I have not heard of this once. But we from Purpose, we really want to build a more pluralistic narrative around steward ownership. We want to tell the stories of entrepreneurs like Stefan, who managed to free their company from investor pressure and eventually benefit the company much better than any investor could ever have. So our first main challenge is to overcome this lack of narratives. Now, if an entrepreneur has heard about it and thinks, oh, this is a great idea, I want to do this, she's facing the next obstacle, namely, it's very difficult and very complex and very expensive to do this right now in most countries. And that's where Purpose Foundation again comes into play. We provide templates, work a lot with lawyers to find governance models that work for the different countries. And here especially, we collaborate a lot with partners from all over the world to find local solutions to this steward ownership agenda or steward ownership problem. Lastly, now they heard about it, they did it, but they of course need money, especially in startups. They need growth capital, or more mature companies usually need buyout capital to buy out investors or to buy out the management. And that's why we founded two investment funds, Purpose Ventures and Purpose Evergreen Capital, that you see there on the top. And with these investment funds, we help entrepreneurs to become steward-owned, either by buying out investors or giving them a starting loan or starting investment. Yes, and all of this plays into our agenda of enabling and inspiring entrepreneurs. And I think this is exactly the moment where I'm going to hand over to Stefan, because Stefan is one of these entrepreneurs who first didn't hear about steward ownership and then did, then had a very difficult way to do it, and then needed money. So he can tell us a little bit more about this journey into steward ownership and what it did with him. I'm going to stop my screen right now. And Stefan is there, yes.
Yeah, great. Can you hear me? Does everyone hear me? Great. I'm directly trying. So first, hello, everyone. I'm super happy to be here. It's a pleasure to talk to you and to share some experiences of mine. I went through all these topics that Annika just told you. So thank you so much, Annika, for sharing all this background information. I'm also happy that you shared it, because now we know about the technical points, and I can share my kind of personal journey through all that. I will try to share my screen. I hope it works because I have some slides about our company. Just let me know if you can see my screen. 1 second.
Yes, we see
Can
your
you
screen.
see? Can you see like the green grass that is
Yes.
with the two children? Great. All right. Yeah, so yeah, my name is Stefan, as Annika was introducing me. I'm 29 years old and I'm the founder, designer, and steward owner. I'm happy and proudly like naming it like that now, a steward owner of Stapelstein. We are based in Germany, Stuttgart, and we produce all our products within Germany. So we try to have like this as sustainable as possible production of our products to have an even like broader impact than our vision itself, which brings me to the next slide. We are there to build a child-friendly future. And I think this vision we have tells the story that we are truly purpose-oriented and that our brand and our company is there to change something for the better. And we try to change the world of the children for the better. And to do that, to create families, because children are always like a part of a bigger ecosystem. And the next one is the family, and then the schools and the kindergartens and so on and so forth. And to build a child-friendly future, we were saying, okay, we need to focus on something. And this is actually where the whole story started. So I was finding during my studies that a basic need of children is not, is lacking a lot during the daily lives of the children. And this brings me to this sentence, which is like, movement is a basic human need, just like breathing, drinking, and sleeping. The only problem is that it takes more time to really understand that the movement is missing. So if you don't breathe, you would notice it after a few seconds or minutes. If you don't drink, you wouldn't notice it latest after a day or two. If you are not sleeping, you might not notice after a day as well, or two, or maybe three if you're hardcore, or if you're in Berlin clubbing. But with movement, like, and this is what actually is taking place in our time. People are not moving enough, especially children. By fact, not even half of the children are moving or reaching the minimum quantity of movement time that the World Health Organization is recommending. And overall, 80% of the children are not reaching the recommended goals of the World Health Organization. So there's a big lack of movement. Everyone knows it, but there is no solutions. So we set to create a child-friendly future. We start by creating solutions that increase playful activity in the daily lives of children. And I already said like playful activity, because play is another very essential basic need of children. This is how children discover the world. This is actually how the natural evolution works, by like nature playing around and having all these little changes, which then leads to the next evolutionary step. So play is something very natural, but we often forget about it. And it's like a great driver to have an amazing impact in a positive way. So we are connecting the movement with the play, which brings us to playful activity. So our mission is to spark playful activity with our products and all the activities that that we are bringing out in this world, or that we create. So this is like a little bit about our purpose, our core purpose, and the topics that we're working on a daily level. And I have great news, because we don't have a distribution partner in Japan yet. So if you know people that could meet our vision or that are interested in our brand, let me know. But now I want to talk about our story of steward ownership, and it all starts with the purpose, which I just described. And I was having this idea of bringing more movement into the daily lives of children back in the year of 2015 even. So I was researching this topic during my design studies, and I created first prototypes, which I then presented in my university's exhibition. And back in the day, it looked like, can you see the new picture now with the child and the little colorful bricks? Yeah, back in the day, the prototype looked like this. And stop audio. It's not really working well, but I think you saw enough. Yeah. So these were the prototypes, and at this stage, I found my angel investors. So they were thinking, this is a great concept. It seems to work. He even has a video that proves that it works, and it's something we didn't see before. So I found 2 angel investors back in the year of 2016. And me as a design student, I was super excited because I thought, oh, this is amazing. Like my idea will be realized and I can even produce it, which is an amazing thing as a product designer. If you didn't do it before, it's like a huge honor. So I founded this company with 2 other people, which gave me like the initial money to create further prototypes and also to create the first serial production in the end. The thing I missed out during that time was like to really research on the legal structure and what Annika just described before I started talking. So I founded the company with the 2 of them, and each of us had like equal part of voting rights. So I had 33%, the other 2 like had the same, both 33%. And we started growing. We were kind of like, I was still studying, but when I ended my studies in 2018 and I was going all in, my co-founder, Hannah, which is still like running the company together with me, joined me full time. And the 2 of us developed the company even further. So we gained the first profits in 2019. And in 2019, when we gained the first profits, we were like, for us, it was natural that we would reinvest them because we wanted to create more impact and we wanted to develop new ideas in order to serve our purpose. And this was the first time when we got like when we had like this few meetings with our investors, and they would then say, no, we can't reinvest them. We want to take out the money. We want to have these first profits. And back then I realized that there's something wrong in our DNA, in our company DNA. And this brought me to this conclusion that how could we stand for free play if we are not free ourselves, which we weren't during that time because I didn't have enough voting rights to make the decisions. They were actually able to kick me out of my own company I created. So it was a very weird situation, and Hannah, my co-founder, didn't have any voting rights at all. So I was kind of speaking for her with my 33%, but my 33% weren't able to take any decisions. So I always needed to have the yes of the others, which weren't actually working within the company. They were just like talking to us during that few meetings, like similar to what Annika described with her experience with the investors. Mine actually talked to me, so this was kind of like maybe the better situation. But actually, we fought for more than 3 years in order to realize the transition from the conventional GmbH in Germany to a purpose company. And this was, I would say, the most challenging time during my life because I was like so how do you say? I was putting all my time and all my energy I had during those years into the company and into that vision, because I strongly believe that we can have a positive impact. And I also put the intellectual property into this company, so it was locked within the company, meaning that I wasn't able to leave the company, create something new, because the valuable intellectual properties would still be in the company, and I was not able to change something about the legal structure because I didn't have enough voting rights. So I was stuck in this situation, and in the end, the only way to get out of that was the cooperation and the help of the Purpose Foundation. And they helped us to understand that there's another path, another avenue we can go. And they provided like the legal assistance that that we were able to create an alternative to what we had. And they were able to provide the money we needed, because this was the only way we could like change something about it. They provided the money we needed in order to to say goodbye to our angel investors. So in 2 steps, we were changing, like we first bought out one of the investors, then the second. It was, as I said, like a process of 2 years. And now we're super happy to be able to 100% focus on our purpose. So we are our purpose now, and only people, including Hannah and me, the 2 of us are now the steward owners, are able to take decisions. And I want to also bring in another thought, because I think I don't want to push too much in a direction where the investors are the bad people. I think investors are highly important in our economy, and they have great knowledge. So I would never underestimate the importance of investors. I think it's about the quality of investors and about their intention. And if I would now found another company with my experience, I would first make sure to understand their intention. And I would make sure that on a contractual level, everything is clear. So every case is covered. I was like, after that, I had like touch points with investors that wanted to invest in us. And I then asked for like the different cases, scenarios, and to really fix like their return on investments and stuff. And they were like, no, let's not talk about it. We will figure it out later. And this was like, oh, okay, I know what kind of investor you are, because if you don't want to talk about this, there might be other interests, and we might have like, we might spend a lot of time, which I rather want to invest in my purpose in my company. We might invest a lot of time in discussions and in front of the court maybe. So I would recommend to clearly think about the legal foundation of the company from the very beginning. And the problem here is that me back in 2015 didn't have the chance to know about all of that, because there was no knowledge and no, how do you say, communication about steward ownership. So it's exactly what Annika said. So I didn't know about this concept, so I wasn't able to realize it. And I think it's super crucial that Purpose is doing that amazing work and is trying to share the knowledge about the alternative way, which in my opinion is like the only way I could imagine myself running a business, a purpose-oriented business. And I strongly believe to create a better world and a sustainable future, we need to be purpose, and we need to have a purpose-oriented economy. Which doesn't mean that there, and this brings me back to the investors topic, that there's no investors. So you can always have investments, but the investments are set in a very like structured way from the very beginning. So you know where you're ending, and there's no like endless multiples that can grow into dimensions that are not healthy anymore for the purpose or for anyone in the company. Yeah, so now we are Purpose, and what our products look like now is this, and I hope I can see like some development from our very first prototypes. And it's not running in a second. Yes. So with our products, children have the chance to experience their whole body through play, through active play. They discover sounds, they discover their balance, they sort colors, They're doing their balance parcours, so it's endless and it's open-ended. And this is another approach that we kind of bring into this kind of old-fashioned toy industry. And we are having like we're seeing the children on eye level. So we also trying to create products that are not childish but child-friendly in order to create a child-friendly future. All right. Yeah. So we are also like even though we are purpose, we need to earn money in order to be successful and to take place in our economy. And that's why we're having a clear value that we're offering. We're offering cutting edge family products to fall in move with, we say. And our success story is I think outstanding in the industry. So I would call us the most successful startup in the toy industry existing in Germany and Central Europe. We already sold more than 2 million of these elements that you just saw. We are selling in around 60 countries. And we reached a revenue last year of about 16 million euros. Which for this industry is quite successful, and we're still growing. So we're having a bright future, being purpose and being maximum focus on the things we do. We have around 30 employees that are very happy to work in a purpose company, and that brings me to another point. So we get many requests of people that want to work for us because we are purpose, because they know there's many advantages for them and security, because they know that if they're talking to Hannah and me, it's the people that are taking decisions. There's no people in the back that would maybe sell the company and suddenly you have like a whole other management that I experienced within the industry with other brands next to us a lot, which basically led to many employees that changed the company or that were unhappy afterwards, or that needed to go. Yeah, and I think this is basically some info from our side, and now I think it's your move. So I would highly recommend to go that path for each and everyone that is choosing to create a vision or to realize a vision through a company, because this is actually why I founded a company. I founded a company not for profit, but I had like a solution for a problem, and the company was the vehicle to bring it into the world. And for us, the only way to do it is purpose. Yeah, so thank you very much for your attention, and I'm super happy to ask any question that is popping up, I think later, right? So I think we have the Q&A later, or do we directly dive into that one?
Yeah. Thank you, Stefan and Annika and Angersan for sharing your story and experience. We want to open up for a question and answer session. And we have lots of time, so speakers can ask questions with each other, or we welcome participants' questions. So to start with, I have a question from Yurika-san. How do you decide if you're a new member in the chat? How do you decide if your new member joins, that person will become a steward owner? Some startup companies offer stock options when joining them. Is there a counterpart to stock options in the structure?
Should I answer first, Stefan? Maybe I'll answer and then Stefan can add whatever he thinks. Yeah, Stefan, could you stop your screen share and we see each other?
Yes, I need to.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll start. We get this question a lot, so thanks for this question. And it's the first thing that comes to many people's mind. And I want to just point out what ownership actually means, or what voting rights in a company actually means. Because if you talk about voting rights, the voting rights that investors buy or that steward owners would hold is just the really most upper level of voting rights. It's like the last instance of power, the thing, if you have to sign a contract, it's the person who signs the contract. But all the other layers of decision making under it are not really depending on the voting rights. So most of the companies that we work with have the steward owners only own this most highest level of ownership of voting rights, and all the rest is structured in a different way. Is not dependent on the steward owners. There could be very even companies with no bosses. Every decisions are taken within teams, or all sorts of new work sort of decision making, and that also takes out the pressure of steward owner, of people becoming steward owners. So what we usually see is that there's one or two steward owners, mostly the founders, sometimes some people who go into that position, but that most of the other people don't even want that steward ownership position, that steward position. They want to play a role, they want to have an impact, but they don't really want this legal voting right. So I don't know any company that offers this position to new joiners, especially because the idea is that it's people who come from within the companies, who know the company very well. And stock options is also interesting because, I mean, steward ownership and stock markets are a little bit divergent. However, there are companies that have stocks, that have a part of their stocks on the stock market. And then, of course, people can have stock options as parts. But I think this whole transition into steward ownership just opens up more questions. What do you actually want to, if you want to join this company? Is there any sort of compensation that you expect if you want to join? And then they find other ways other than these regular stocks or shares or whatever. So maybe Stefan, you want to share how you experienced that with new joiners?
Yeah, sure. Happy to share that. Actually, it's possible to get into the steward ownership position, but normally you would have like this rule that you first need to be in the company for a few years, like 3 years or something. You can like design all of that individually, but I think we have like the minimum of 3 years in our contracts or something, that it's like even possible in order to have like a proper understanding and the trust to be able to take that position. And for me, this is the most important part. So you would really want to make sure that the person that is one of the steward owners is breathing your values and your mission and your vision where you want to go. But in terms of the employees that are working for us, they're not really like asking for that position from the very beginning. So this is not this is not really a topic. I would even compare it to like conventional companies where I think only a few employees that are conscious about the legal structures in the bank would ask for, can I be a Gesellschafter, like a shareholder, which is kind of like not the first question you would ask when you start working for a company. So to summarize, yes, there is the possibility to become a steward owner, but in my experience, employees are not asking for it from the very beginning. It's more like I see it from the direction that we would ask the people if we see the potential that there is like a very special and strong bond between the company and a person.
Thank you, Annika and Stefan. Yoshi-san, would you like to share your example of the AG Press? You supported their transition into steward ownership, right? And then you talked about golden share and then that kind of structure.
Sure. Let me share my screen. Wait. So I think this is wonderful. This deal was wonderful. Probably it's one of the first deals in Japan that was, that used golden share for this purpose. It's in Japanese, but I can explain about the structure, that how it was set. So at the bottom, you see the green color. This is AG Press, so the company. And the story actually began when the founder of this company started thinking about the succession of to the next generation, right? And the founder, of course, had significant amount of the shares. So he had to find some companies or people who can take over his stocks, his shares, in addition to the management role. So we have a new management role, but we haven't found the new the capital takers, the new shareholders. And this company, Age Press, has been almost for, I think, more than 20 years, 30 years maybe, 20 years, sorry, 20 something. And this company is known for strong culture, and then also the purpose. The culture is basically, it's what do you call it? The self-discipline sort of. So everybody actually participates in decision making. Even in the say like a new business development, or even this is a publishing company, so there's always a meeting to decide which ideas will be published, and they always try to decide with everybody's agreement, even for recruiting a new employee as well. If one of the companies, sorry, if one of the employees disagree, then they would not hire these people. So this is the strong culture of this company. So they wanted to maintain this culture. And also the purpose of the company is very similar. The purpose of the company is publishing for change. It's basically they try to support people change by the way of publishing, so that when you publish something, this idea or these things can be possessed by everybody. So this is the company's purpose. And at some time, this company called Kayak, which is a listed company, which is also actually an interesting company. They wanted to buy this company. So we thought about how do we do this M&A while maintaining the purpose and culture of this company that was cultivated for over 25 years. And then the answer we achieved was issuing a golden share to the it's essentially to the employees of this AG Press. But if you look at the left, the top left, you see AG Shuppan wo Tsunagu Kai, which means basically connecting the AG Press. This is a non-profit organization. And this non-profit organization is owned by the employee of AG Press. So we decided to have AG Press issue one golden share with the veto right to make against making the changes of the purpose, and then also the name of the company in the article of the corporation. So essentially, and the rest of the shares were sold to this company called Kayak. So over 99% of the company, the shares were sold to Kayak, and less than 1%, just one stock is owned by this nonprofit organization, which is actually owned by all the members of the employee of AG Press. So this structure basically, the AG Press, this structure basically what we wanted to do, right? The AG Press is now under the Kayak group, but the company's is kind of protected the company's purpose, and it also name of the brand, the brand of the company is protected by this non-profit organization, which is a veto right. So basically, if we want to change the purpose of this company, or change entirely the company, then you would need to get an agreement from the all the employees. So this is basically the explanation of this structure. And I think this is, like I said, it's probably one of the first deals that used the golden share for this kind of purpose. The golden share, I think there are some structures that uses golden share in the past, but mostly it's for how do you say it? Protecting M&A, against M&A, or just to when the company's succession. It's not for this purpose thing, but it's more for the say like owner's interest. It's more protection reasons, not for this kind of a social, I would say social impact, kind of a social impact, or the public purpose. So this happened about a month ago. It's been taken by a lot of media. So this article is on the Business Insider, and then also Nikkei newspaper and other web media as well. And yeah, so this is, we didn't call it steward ownership, but I guess what you did, Stefan, in your company is basically the same. I think the structure is almost the same. I think the only difference is I saw some difference, but I forgot. The only difference is maybe it's an employee owned. But I guess the structure, purpose, what they do is probably essentially same. That's it.
Maybe I can jump in there because there's I think one major difference that I would like to point out. If we use the golden share in order to lock these principles, right? To lock the governance. Yeah. And that would, for instance, for Stefan mean that he could, or the steward owners of Stapelstein could always change the purpose of the company depending on whatever is best for the company, right? If they notice, oh, children have now no longer to move because they moved to the max, maybe they want to do something else, and they could, right? The purpose itself is not locked, because and that's the main difference between foundations and steward ownership. We want to enable the people who are at a company at any day to be the ones who decide what's best for the company. And if the best for the company is to change the purpose, then so be it. But no one, like, I love this example because the Rolex, this company Rolex with the watches is a foundation-owned company based in Geneva. And the owner, the founder, he didn't have children. So he put the company into a foundation, and he wrote in the statutes that the money that would be made with Rolex would have to be invested into companies and families and whatever around Geneva. So now they have, no one knows how much money they make. They have billions of euros each year that they can spend only in Geneva. So if someone from another Swiss city would say, hey, can you please help us? They wouldn't be allowed to do it because we call it the dead hand of the foundation, or the founder is still gripping this company. Okay, Geneva is a big city, so I guess they find enough places where to spend this money. But we want to make sure that steward ownership gives the flexibility to entrepreneurs to decide every day what's best, and not to decide it 100 years ago and maintain it.
So it's not the veto right you gave to Stefan. If it's a veto right, you can't actually change the purpose, right? You have a right to veto, but not to change it. So in your structure, you said you gave a control of changing it, which means it's not the veto right, but it's actually it's the right to change the purpose of the company. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it works even a bit differently. I mean, we do have a very fixed veto right from the Purpose Foundation on Stapelstein. If they would now change the statutes, right? If they would change their governance, we would say, no, sorry, can't do. But anything else they could, right? If Stefan now decided to step down and someone else would become steward owner, we as the Purpose Foundation wouldn't be able to intervene.
I
or
see.
if they want to
Sorry,
take a
I
purpose or-
misunderstood. So you as a
Yeah.
foundation, you have a veto right, and then
Yeah.
you give most of the rights to the entrepreneur, to Stefan.
Exactly. Yeah. The only thing we're locking are these two principles. Exactly. Yeah. The principles that I explained earlier.
Yeah, I guess this comes from the timing or occasion, right? This whole thing actually was the will of the founder as well. The founder wanted to do this. Founder wanted to pass on his shares basically to this company, but at the same time he wanted to pass the kind of a culture. He wanted to pass the sort of a special right to also the employees. So this was also the will of the original founder as well.
Hey, thank you so much. For participants, if you have any questions, please feel free to say or type in the chat. I have a question about the future you're seeing. Anika, you talked about the stock market versus the steward ownership. If you promote this and encourage all the organizations in the world to adopt steward ownership, then how would you see the landscape, especially in relation to the stock market? Could it be replacing it, or are we kind of coexisting?
Yeah, I think our goal from Purpose is definitely a coexistence. We want entrepreneurs like Stefan to be able to choose and not to be pushed into a model that doesn't fit for their company. And I mean, the example that I started with, you know, the story with my elevator and the company there, that was a company that would have never worked in steward ownership because they needed a lot of money, and the idea was it was not very good. So there were investors who thought this was a good idea, but I think by itself, this company would have never been able to grow slow enough to have enough money to grow. I mean, I think there are always companies who need this sort of receive high risk sort of money, but we just want people to be able to choose, and we want a pluralistic environment of companies. And I mean, we do see it now already with investors. Many contact us each day and say we want to learn more about this, because they notice that companies like Stapelstein that they would be interested in investing in, they say, no, you can only invest in us if it's on steward ownership terms. So we see that the pressure on investors, for instance, is high, that they want to learn about this and maybe try it out. And so it's a very slow move into hopefully a world where there is, you know, maybe 10% of companies are steward owned and the rest has different ownership models. But it's just that this course is out there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, it's great to have alternatives and then see all the different options. Yeah, for everything. And if you have any questions, please ask. I think I have two more. You mentioned that you established this investment arm, right? And then, so who are the funders? And then when they are investing in your foundation or capital investment firm, are they requesting the investment should go to certain industries or organization?
No, I mean, that's also how we build those funds. We made sure that we have the flexibility to decide ourselves, the investment teams to decide in which companies this money would be invested in. But I mean, our two investment funds are really just a very small vehicle. Our main goal is to attract other investors, to interest other investors to go along. And we usually only do joint deals, so where we take over mostly a third of the sum ourselves, and we try to get other investors in. And these investors are also, they kind of, yeah, there's more traditional ones coming in now, but most of them are family offices, private investors who look for ways to do value-aligned investments, because they say, you know, I have these values, and if I go on the normal VC market, these values are not mirrored in there. So they also start to look for ways to do it differently. And that's also because they are so open and so flexible. They don't usually say it has to be in the energy transition, or it has to be in, I don't know, fashion. the investments. Yeah.
Do you see a lot of?
Mhm.
Do you see
Oh,
a lot?
please.
Sorry. Do you see a lot of how do you say attraction from these investors, like private investors?
Yeah. I mean, if today was 5 years ago, I would have to say not very much.
Yeah.
We did a lot of work to attract investors, to tell them, look, these are profitable companies. The investments are much more profitable than in other sorts of investment deals. You might have to wait a little bit longer for your returns, but the returns are more safe. And what investors also really like, and I had never expected that, they enter a relationship with the investees, right? It's more like a marriage instead of this power divergence, and it's a beneficial situation to everyone, because I mean, you heard Stefan, in the beginning he really needed the expertise and the help of the investors to build this company. So of course this is hugely beneficial to both sides. We just split up this automation that money equals power, and we replace it with like a more relational relationship. Yeah,
I see. Well, if you have any data, or if you have any actual number of the companies or things like that, that would be super helpful for other countries, I think. Especially like in Japan, like you said before we started this session, Zebras and the steward ownership has a lot of alignment. We need what we need is more actual cases, right? If we can refer to cases even in Germany or Europe, then that would be super helpful for, like Japanese people, institutions.
Yeah, I'll send you an email afterwards with a few things. And I'm just saw in the chat there were 2 questions that go a bit into that direction, so I'll answer them right away. I mean, I missed my introduction a little bit in the beginning. I'm leading our international partnership, so I work a lot with organizations throughout the world who want to enable steward ownership in their country. And unfortunately, in Japan so far, there has not been a partner that said, oh, we want to become, I'd say now in parentheses, we want to become Purpose Japan. We want to become the ambassador for steward ownership in Japan. So there is definitely a potential, and we from Purpose Germany are very interested in supporting you. So if Zebras or whoever else is listening wants to step up and build a, let's call it a think tank or a ambassador company to bring steward ownership to Japan, please go ahead. Which also means, okay, perfect. Yoshi's already on board. We have no experience with other examples than with the golden share, and I'm not a lawyer. I know that in the US you can use trusts. In Germany you have to use a golden share because the legislation is missing in Germany. And there's also, but for instance, in Germany there's another group, another foundation called Foundation for Steward Ownership, and they are lobbying to get a new legal form. So if that happens, in Germany, Stefan goes to the register to found his company, he can choose it's a normal limited or it's a limited in steward ownership. Oh, great, I choose that one. So that would be, the long-term goal, that it's so easy. And then once we have that German form, maybe a Japanese politician listens and says, oh, this is amazing. This fits really well with our values. We can also maybe do this in Japan. So this is a very, very long and hilly path, but we are moving forward. And I would say, I mean, the momentum is really good right now because companies like Patagonia, companies like OpenAI have done this transition. And we have great stories like Stefan's story to tell to the world that are very convincing. So yeah, very curious to hear how steward ownership can work in Japan.
Yeah.
I have a question to Stefan. So we talked about investors and then steward ownership holders, and then when you look at employees or working environment on a day-to-day situation, when you transition into a steward ownership company, are there any changes they're going through? Are there any cultural or mindset like attitude that are kind of fit with the steward ownership structure?
Yeah, thank you for this question. I think this is a very important one because there is, I think often the thought that there is like a huge change in the company, also in culture, but it's not. So actually, I was kind of surprised that on an operational level, we didn't realize it changed, but I think it changes everything in terms of leadership. And if you change the leadership approach and your motivation and your energy as a leader and as the steward owners, then I think over long term the company changes a lot. So I think the positive impact is for sure, but it's like a slow process that evolves over time, rather than actually, there's no need to change anything about the organizational structure, but steward-owned companies tend to choose like teal organizational models, like cell organization, like working in circles. We, for instance, we use holacracy as an organizational structure, which works great, and I think steward-owned companies also attract people that are searching for these kind of alternative models. So I think it's important to just like differentiate between like the legal or formal foundations of it. So there's no need to change something about it. But these companies, like at least that's what I see, tend to also choose alternative paths or avenues to go and to work together. That's my opinion on that. Maybe you, Annika, have maybe you can add on that if you have other experience or additional information.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what Stefan said, but it is a process that really has to be designed and has to be guided or joined, because we sometimes have these owners saying, we did steward ownership now, and we talked to our employees now, and we told them we are now steward owned, and everyone said they're and then people were really disappointed because they didn't understand, and they thought, oh God, change is always difficult. So we call it, you have to fill stewardship with life, right? You have to live stewardship. It's not enough to simply put like a nail into the tree's roots, but you have to make projects about it, like change management processes or these sort of things that help employees to find their way or find their path in the new organization. Though, as Stefan said, nothing changes eventually on paper. I mean, on paper, yeah, but in their daily life, it takes years. But I mean, because the company is so much more independent, everyone benefits from, for instance, larger projects that can be worked on that before would have been stopped, or like with me in that stupid company that I told you in the beginning, me being actually able to introduce some sort of lunch program. So there I would have noticed, of course, the change right away, but that was a story of failure.
So I can add another story I just experienced. So I had a colleague of mine left our company for personal reasons, and she started to work in another company that wasn't steward owned, and she was in a financial sector, or let's say financial part of the company, or the team, and she recently called me and she said, okay, Stefan, now I know why you're steward-owned and why it's so special. I just experienced that they want to sell the company, and I now realize, 2 months after I joined the company, that my job will will probably be cut away after this transition, and the company might also change the location from Germany to Denmark. So I can't move because I just left you because of personal reasons, and I need to be here at home. So now I really understand the importance of steward ownership. I didn't realize it working at Stapelstein before, but now I experienced it myself, and I think it's exactly the right way you're going. So this was kind of very touching for me, because it was another case where a former employee of ours experienced the power of investors in the background, and how it changes everything also in the management, on a management level. And this is also what I wanted to point out, that it just protects the company and the purpose in terms of me as a manager of the company. I don't even need to think about possible ways of selling the company or having possible investors in our boat that have like short-term interests. It's like I'm super clear about, if we get requests on it, I'm super clear about like what's possible and what's not, and it helps me to focus on a daily basis to fulfill our purpose. And I think people within the team, they feel it. I strongly believe that you can feel the difference in a purpose company.
Thank you for sharing all these stories. It's very insightful. We have a couple of more minutes left. If anyone from the speakers or audience have any remaining question, this is time to ask. Good. If not, I have one last question. So I think Annika has seen a lot of organizations trying to transition into purpose, like no, steward ownership. But then I'm sure some companies fail to do so or couldn't reach the path. What are the main reasons for those companies who wanted to reach steward ownership but couldn't?
It's exactly what Stefan went through. First, he had to hear about steward ownership. He hadn't heard about it. So first to hear. Second, to do it is quite complex, quite expensive. You need to find good lawyers who understand the concept. And then third, you might mostly need money. So I think there's some studies saying around 30% of all company owners, family company owners in Germany want to do steward ownership, but only, I don't know, 0.01% is doing it. So that's a huge gap. And that's exactly what we at Purpose do, is we try to decrease these challenges so that more founders, more owners can move towards such a company form. Yeah. And I mean, eventually, if we in Germany really got this legal form, that would be a huge game changer, because lots of people would hear about it in the newspapers, and then they could, find help to do so. Yeah.
And I think there's one more very simple thing I would want to add, is that in the end, if the owner, like the current owners, don't want to change, they can just like say, no, we're not doing it. Like if they have other plans, and like if the whole company and all the employees, they want to change into steward ownership, but the three people that are holding like the voting rights are like, or let's say one of the three is willing to change, but the two others are having different plans, you can't force it. And this was exactly my case. So I was just not. In the end, we were able like to convince this person with a lot of money, right? This was like the downside of it. I would always do it again. I must say, like this was just like the best decision. I don't know if we would exist today if we wouldn't have done it, because I was just not possible to properly do my work, because I was just blocked mentally. I was like, I can't work for this company in this setup anymore now that I'm conscious about it. So but if they don't want to change, there's no way. So I think in the end, of course, with enough money, you can make it possible. you might be able to make it possible, but you need to convince them at some point to change.
Thank you. And thank you yourself for the question in the chat. I was also so curious about this. And then Annika shared the article. So we're going to maybe talk about it later. But yeah, it's been a very curious news.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we are, I think, about